fantastic host for us in your house and generally for a lot of people here. I last spoke at a permaculture convergence in 2008, and a few things have changed for us since then. We don't run a seed bank anymore. We've totally decentralised seed banks around Australia to over 90 local seed networks. We're not so busy anymore. We have time for our grandchildren. Big hint to some of you our age.
9 of them.
And 9 of them, yes. One of whom is in Auckland, so we're going to see him later. And we put out a film since then. That is going to be shown tomorrow, I think at 1:30. No, 11 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning here. It's a 1-hour documentary that we made for the people of the Pacific, particularly Melanesian people, our very nearest neighbours, at least to Australia, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu and New Caledonia, and they're Melanesian people. So we made that, though other people really enjoy it. The name of the film is Our Seeds. Yes. Yes, you can buy a DVD off our website, which is there.
And now we're at Leap.
Yeah, that's
awesome. I've showed it all around the world.
Thank you, Mark.
We do specialise in seeds, but we're very much from a permaculture base. But Phil Mollison encouraged us to start Seed Savers 26 years ago, and so we're really mindful of permaculture applications and basis of permaculture in all of our work. Want a word?
Yeah, I know, that's all very fine, Jude, thank you.
I don't think you're on.
She is, she's just not up. You need to turn up the volume.
We've also got some spare copies, I haven't asked Michelle if this is okay, of that DVD, that if you've got a project in a third world country, we'd be happy to give you one. Yes, so do come and see us, we do have some spares with us. We've actually given away 900 copies. The second thing... And the second thing that we've done is we've worked in Vanuatu on a film called Our Roots, or Nos Racines, because it was in French, and also in their local language, Bishama. And we didn't edit that. The local Vanuatu Broadcasting Commission edited that one. So we hope to show that one to you one day when we're a bit more happy with the result. Okay, so we're going to go for a bit of a tour around the world. We're going to finish at 10:30. So the time now is, we've got 150 slides, so
we'll be leaving time for questions.
We've got just over an hour, yeah. Okay, so food sovereignty starts with a seed, and a lot of our work has been, a lot of our information has come from seed keepers in third world countries. We've got, in fact, a lot less strict about our seed saving, having written a book about it. About, you know, keeping things very pure and selecting them and making sure you don't cross-pollinate. We've actually noticed a lot more lackadaisical attitude in people in third world countries who, after all, are the guardians of diversity. So that might come as a bit of a shock to you that we've got, and certainly in our garden we've become that way.
No, it's all naturalised and self-seeding.
You're not on, you need to turn yourself on.
Yeah, no, he's on, it's just not very loud.
Huh?
You see it shout.
This was better.
Put it right next to your mouth.
Thank you.
You're not going to volume it.
Just talk, Mitch.
Right. Our seed system is very much based on indigenous systems.
Bueno.
You know, we learn from permaculture. So we copy virtually from the naturals. And we have noticed that in every region that we work in, or that we were born in, even in Les Vosges in France for me, farmers had a wide range of crops, of species, so they had species diversity, but they also had varietal diversity. When I asked my godmother, two of you, you're 80 years old and you had 12 types of potatoes, why do you keep that? She said, you know, what you had today I can't eat the machine one, right? And she had early variety, late varieties. She had the variety that she does for salad, and it's got to be firm. And she's got a variety for just about everything. And she's got colorful variety as well, just for a bit fanciful. But I noticed that so here you got before we had a view of diversity, what indigenous people are drawing still. Here we've got this woman here that we can't see the face, but normally with a good light you can see her behind her, look like a chador or a burqa, but that's traditional from Rajasthan. And she has a red maize there. So indigenous people love color, no doubt, because they often have greens in their surrounding, and they appreciate very, very much colors. So this woman here.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I've got the loud voice.
So this woman here had selected a red maize, and you'll see later Kamadoma just after this slide. She also, well, traditional diversity in Ecuador, we have a little project there, and it works in altitude. So Andean people have different variety for different altitude and for different climates. We also noticed that wherever we travel, we climb, and we end up in very small little roads, little tracks. Well, because diversity is not in the plains, it's not with large-scale farmers. It's totally held, 100% held by indigenous farmers, backyard gardeners, urban gardeners. They're the people that are actually holding that diversity. And that's where we hang, and they're the people we ally with. Now, if a farmer's wife, often in Australia we had people calling in, and if it was a farmer's wife, that was for the vegetable garden, not for the husbands. And in India, very much is the same thing. The men are going for the cash crops, and the women are feeding and healing everyone else. So the guardian of diversity are women. That's the first thing.
Okay, do you notice how rough and rustic these look? I often think that I'm really grateful to permaculture over this last 30 years for changing my perception of things, of what is messy, what is tidy, yeah? And it's the same with varieties. For example, corn, you can have very, very straight teeth, but these ones are hugely rustic. These are the original corn, and this is what breeders actually look for in terms of hardiness. So your eye starts to change when you go on markets and when you start growing things yourself, and you notice things are less than perfect, but often, in my opinion, they have more nutrition and taste. Michelle mentioned Kamadoma. She's a Tibetan refugee born in India, and she had for a long time grown, they're all maize growers in their area, and she had for a long time grown hybrid maize, as everyone did. And along came the Dalai Lama a few years ago and said, I'm sorry, but you're all going to have to go organic because, you know, we can't be killing the microorganisms and the insects and so forth. So they had this huge challenge. What sort of seed are we going to use? So they said, okay, well, we can't use these hybrids because they're so dependent on chemicals. We'll have to use a non-hybrid. So they went to the local tribal people in the Nilgiri hills that you can see behind her, and they had kept traditional maize, and that's her crop behind her, and she really liked the red ones. She's put them in a bit of a cross there because she really loved the red ones, and she was going to be selecting out for red ones. Back home, here in New Zealand, you have amazing maize here, and of course Coima Gardens and the Coenga Institute are really ahead in keeping those going.
If you can't see very well at the back, I've just been there and I know you can't see colors very well. There is blue maize. There's 3 different types of 4 different types of maize, 5. There's a deep red one, and they're all separated, so none of them are mixed.
Mish, put the microphone like you're swallowing it.
Okay, yeah, right.
So we believe, we're just going to go through a few assumptions here. One is that women are generally the guardians of diversity. The second is that food plants adapt to local conditions. So wherever you source your seeds, whether from a seed company or from a faraway place, as a lot of seed companies do anyway, and unfortunately we've found in Australia that even quite small seed companies import a lot of their seeds, and largely from America, which means they could come from anywhere in the world, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs in America that have contracted out seed growing to places like Kenya and Colombia and Ecuador, because they're equatorial. Equatorial, but
no, stick with the other one.
altitude.
Jude, your voice is better without the mic.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that way the soft mic voice
So they actually outsource the growing of seeds to third world countries where labour is cheap. So really, when you buy seeds from a seed company, it would be worthwhile ringing up your seed companies and finding out where they source their seeds.
So if we are to increase diversity, which is the purpose of what we're doing, we have to get people selling seeds. Needs not to be a centralized power, because we know that Monsanto owns 50% of the global seed trade, more or less. We need to have many small growers, many resellers, if there are resellers, and regionalize one seed will not fit everywhere. Adaptation happen, we'll see that.
So in relation to climate, we've already covered, in relation to climate change, we're all looking at something like Timor as an example, because they've been facing arid climate for so long. Their landscapes can even be like this, very steep. And so when we were there, we noticed their techniques. They have an insurance policy of keeping an enormous diversity of, for example, beans and maize, and tomatoes also. But we'll stick with beans and maize. So here you can see different vignas up on the top left and different phaseolus to your right, and down the bottom. So we noticed that the native cowpeas, vigna, had an enormous diversity. This is on the market in Dili, and this one's in Oakusi in the enclave in West Timor. Enormous diversity of corn.
2004, 3?
2002. So you want to talk about this one?
No.
So this is yours.
Yeah, right. So we have agency bringing quite some seeds, like they bring in, for example, number of ad agency came to see us and say we need like 4 tons of maize for distributing to population. I say, well, what about going to Indonesia, not going to Australia to actually get the seeds? For a start, get closer to your climate. And also, what about putting some money towards rapid multiplication of local variety of maize, get the best. And if you can't supply everything straight away, then do it for the next season, because people plant all year round. Instead of spending all the money, but it looks good for their constituency, for their donors, to actually say, hey, we got 3 tons of seeds, where it's just about impossible to get that after the war when people ate a lot of their seeds, but not all of their seeds. People have been burying seeds, you see. That's what I do. That's what we know by research, that's what they've been doing too.
Well, that's what your uncle did, didn't he, during the Second World War? He buried some seeds, bean seeds, and actually gave them to the priest who buried them, and they buried them under the church.
The village did. Everyone put their seeds together.
In the Second World War, and they put them next to the church, and when they dug them up, there was a crucifix on them.
But that is their story. In fact, what happened, there were mutations happening, right? But that's why it's called the crucifix seed, and everyone fell on their knees and said, my God, you know, we have been saved, although we got bombarded. Lots of us were alive, our parents at least. But it was obviously a mutation that happened, but people were very ready to believe it was God.
Okay, let's come back to New Zealand. When we were here last in 2004, oh, you've got the crucifix beans. Another miracle.
Thank you, Mark.
So we were here for the Echo show in 2004, and we were absolutely stunned by your Maori potatoes. How much diversity do you have? It really blew us away.
Because in Australia we don't have that diversity.
So we were on the Otara market, and this is what we saw. Now, of course, seeds does include all planting materials, such as tubers, rhizomes, bulbs, and so forth. And we like to think it includes fungi, microorganisms, and even sea vegetables. So we're going to look at that later.
Yeah, and those variety doesn't happen by miracle only. There's a miracle there, but not as big as we think. What actually happened is that indigenous people in the Andes saved seeds, and mothers, grandmothers, aunties, when there's a wedding, they save the seeds, and years in advance they prepare a new line to actually give to the woman. So when she arrives, she's given some seeds that have been seed potatoes, but they start with seeds. That is well documented too. And I'm sure if you look in a lot of civilization, seeds is in the dowry, certainly in India.
So let's go to the Andes where these root crops originated, and there's more than potatoes in the Andes that they eat from under the ground. Does anyone know this species? Because Michelle took the photo, but he didn't find out what it was. There's a second one we'd like to know too, but there are a few we do know.
It looks a bit like the pink bird that we had down south.
Pink fur potato. He thinks it's a different species.
This one is Uluko, which is...
This is Uluko.
This one is the third crops in the Andes.
It's all yours.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is related to nasturtium. It's a tuberous nasturtium. And it's a very large crop amongst poor people. It's got a bit of some, not bitterness, some acridity to it. But people eat it and they tend to freeze it to change the taste.
This is your yam.
That's the Maori yam, isn't it? Well, this one probably arrived with whalers or someone, or canoes, probably.
And this is another crop we don't know the name of, just a photo.
Because you know, when we've got so many thousands of shots, and some of them you don't look often, and for preparing for the show, I picked those and I say, my gosh, I don't even know what it is. Because I shot them on the market, sometimes you don't have a translator, sometimes people are very busy, you can't go and bother them asking. You ask permission to take a picture now, you've got to ask them something, you have to pay them nearly to actually do it.
So let's go to
Artichoke. Jerusalem artichoke?
Pardon?
Is it a Jerusalem artichoke maybe?
No.
Oh, no. Close. Suggestion, Jerusalem artichoke, it could have been, yes, but actually I'm so sorry that you can't see these as well as we hoped. Let's go to the Solomons. So how do we help in these situations where diversity is being lost? Well, if you go to the Solomons, you know that there's people keeping so much diversity in remote areas. So that's how the Planting Material Network that we helped set up in 1995 works. It's a very devolved organisation. It has people in all over the Solomons that are collecting diversity of all sorts of things. For example, they've done a whole thing on cassava, taro and sweet potato. Those being some of the staples. And bananas, another staple that we'll look at in a minute. And they have farmers, and sometimes they'll pay them part-time, like 1 day a week, to be collectors and educators, trainers to other farmers. And so they've made a collection of taro, and they collected in 2002 or 3 1,000 varieties across the Solomons.
For exchange.
For exchange. So the danger here is if you centralise this kind of collection, it's open to biopiracy. So if you keep it devolved and decentralised, then there's less likelihood of that. In one island of Malaita, one of the major islands of the Solomons, they collected 250 varieties, and this was the Taro Fair, where they They exchanged with one another the taste tests, like they'd put them all into green bamboo, one node of green bamboo. They'd put 10 pieces in there, and then stuff leaves in the top, and then put that on the fire and cook that, turning it until the bamboo is black, and that steams them beautifully. It's an amazing ancient method of cooking all sorts of things, including pork and chicken, and it comes out delicious, you know, soft, slow cooking. And they did a taste test on those, and lots of exchange. In New Guinea, sweet potato is king, and Michelle spent some time there on 2 occasions in the highlands.
Yeah, it's mostly looked after by women, and again they're the ones that actually select mutant varieties, the ones that decide not to cook it, but to actually replant it. They're the ones that also swap cuttings of them. But there's something happening, and we made a little documentary on that in Vanuatu, is that sweet potato, yams, and even taro can reproduce by seed under some condition, and cassava. And then that's the only way you're going to have a re-diversification. And some people have noticed it because we look at surveys that happen on people working in the field, and we realized that some people knew that those little seedlings, they noticed the little seedling from sweet potato, from the sweet potato seed, that actually fall, and they say, that is interesting, and they can recognize also that it's rather purple, and because they love to select for pigmentation, they tend to favor colors, and they're also more visible. You see, if you got lots of different seedling of sweet potato that just came after the rain that come from the little seed pod, the seed capsule of the potato, that's not often visible, but they exist. And they're tiny seeds, smaller than basil. You're more likely to actually notice a purple stem. And that's where you got your antioxidant.
Hamish, they also noticed like taro seedlings in the crooks of trees, so they'd come by birds.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of mythology about it as well.
So let's turn to rice, because we've worked in India quite a lot with the Green Foundation, based in Bangalore. So if you look them up, they're an amazing group, Green, capital G, all capitals, Green Foundation. And along with the Philippines, we've also worked in the Philippines some time ago. They're amazing with their rices and all the alternatives to rice. So, for example, finger millet, foxtail millet,
yeah.
And...
Actually, that's where Vandana Shiva started in India. And lots of Filipino also started that because after the Green Revolution, there were very visibly a loss of diversity on the market. In Indonesia, it was pushed by the government to actually not grow any more traditional varieties because they wanted production and other reasons, other conspiracy-style reasons. So they tended to focus on rice and only rice. That's why we came to India, invited twice by Vandana Shiva, to actually put the finger on vegetables, because at the same time as everyone focused on rice and only rice, they forgot the millets, they forgot all the vegetables that are women's crop. So again, they focus on men's crop, where the family nutrition doesn't come from the men's crop. So the men's crop pay for school fees and repairing the house and mobile telephone, but not necessarily to feed the family.
So these are some women that work in that are members of Community Seed Bank. They don't work there. They are just voluntary members of Community Seed Banks that Green Foundation has organised all over Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. There are lots of other groups, but this is just the group that we know. And they collect, they're just amazing what they do. They have, they live in marginal areas, like these women, goddesses in ball gowns, just doing their normal daily work, collecting the finger millet in the field.
It's a rain-fed one too.
Meaning no irrigation. They also, of course, have lots of feed for their cattle, like their sweet-stemmed sorghum. And they hand-feed their cattle. They're twisting the stems of the sorghum to release the juice, and then pushing it into the cow's mouth. They love their cows.
It's kind of your Facebook, you know, people talk to each other across the street while they're feeding their cattle. And they're communicating, because let's not forget, those cattle, they are very dangerous. You see how they're made. And they need to be worked on every day if you don't want accidents. So you need a constant communication, and the traditional variety breeds. So you can understand why the government would be pushing for something much more tanned and more, but probably more prone to diseases, you know. You know the story.
So we're going to go for a quick trip through Banana Land. A lot of bananas in the Pacific and Southeast Asia look like this, yeah? Not so good, but they taste fantastic.
The acuminata. You know, there's several species of Valbusina, and so sometimes when you see banana, they say AAA or AB. That means it's a cross between two different, and acuminata is the source of most commercial varieties, including Goldfinger and Cavendish. So how do they get these? Well, they collect them from all the previous people that you've seen. For example, this kind of banana from the Solomon Islands, they're called 5 minutes because it doesn't take very long to cook. So because people are urbanizing themselves a lot in the islands, people are attracted to bright light. Firewood is extremely expensive, like in hundreds of dollars for a week comparatively to here. It's very, very expensive. So people are very much, so they use carols. So they're very much after a variety that cook very fast. That's why they also eat a lot of 3-minute noodle, because it doesn't cost a lot in firewood. At a traditional meal on a weekend, people might spend more on the firewood than they would spend on the vegetables.
Michelle mentioned different species, so this is Troglodyterum.
Troglodyte.
Suggesting some kind of ancientness, and they're Fei bananas, or soa in Samoa.
They grow upright.
They grow upright, yeah, you know, bananas hang down like that, but these ones stick upright. So in Tahiti, where we have family, they're very, very popular, and also in Samoa and in Micronesia.
And they're very rich, and that's, there's one variety called karat, which is the Palau name, Micronesian name, that contains 28 times more a certain type of antioxidant than normal Fei banana, although Fei banana are also already very high, but there's many different varieties of them, as you can
And 10 times the provitamin A and carotene.
So those ones all come from seed, from mutants or from ancient variety that had seeds in it, because now there's no more seeds. And that is a problem that we have with banana, commercial banana, that it's very hard to rediversify. Yes?
I have twice in my life seen a banana full of seeds, and it's been...
Yes,
he
mentioned this banana's full of seeds.
In Indonesia.
In North Queensland we have a native banana that's full of seeds.
And in Australia.
Aha. They're quite large actually, like sort of little balls of lead.
Yes.
So we have a problem with the rural exodus in all over the world. We've just reached, isn't it? Half the world lives in a city. People go for, this is in New Guinea, people go for colour. In our garden we have purple and striped and red sugarcane. So we're going to look at colouring carrots now, because I've noticed, you know how everything has a bit of a trend. What's the latest one?
Purple carrots. Powder.
There's something that's, that's right, there was olive leaf extract. So we pruned our olive trees and put them out on the front pathway and put olive leaves to extract, you know. Go home and take a branch of this and boil it up or powder it or whatever you're supposed to do. So actually when we preserve our olives, we put a few leaves in there. Anyway, apparently another latest one is carrots. So where do colourful carrots come from? Well, from where they originate.
Afghanistan.
Central Asia, Afghanistan included. So when we were in Herat in Western Afghanistan in 2002 and 3, we noticed that most of the carrots there were black or purple or blue, with some yellow and a very few orange ones. In fact, the Dutch selected orange carrots about 300 years ago, that being their favourite colour, as did the Italians select red beetroot as opposed to the normal yellow one, which is what it originated as. So you see a lot of
for juicing.
Purple carrots for juicing.
Even in Afghanistan, in Herat, rich people actually can afford a juice. It's about a day's salary for a farmer. Yeah.
And red ones?
Yellow.
We arrived in Afghanistan through Iran, because that's the closest area, the easiest way, was the easiest way to get there, through Mashhad in Iran. And so we saw yellow carrots there too. So here we go, this is an FAO photo that we took off the net.
By the way, we visited some American NGOs in Mashhad, and they were already saying that it started getting a bit hot for them, so I think they would have left by now.
So how do those guys that we saw 3 or 4 slides ago keep them separate? How do they separate the purple from their, say, yellow ones? They seemed fairly relaxed about it. They said, oh, look, if they do cross, we can easily select back. So this is a bit of a lesson. That was a real lesson for us to realise that you can, select back out from your rainbow selection if you want. By a rainbow selection, then you want purple ones or red ones or whatever, you can select back out. So those are the originators of the carrots, of the carrot as a species. They domesticated carrots, as they did with lots of species like almonds, pistachio, apples and so forth in Central Asia. Apricots come from that region, and they selected them as bush foods. For us Australians, bush foods is fantastic, and we're actually at the beginning of that journey with our species of domestication. But did Monsanto that owns Asgrow actually invent the chantenaire carrot, which the French developed from the Afghanis? So this is an immensely ethical question, isn't it?
The Arabs, yeah.
And when they sell them to, for example, this Andean farmer, for how much?
Well, he paid $20 for a very, very small tin, and that was about 10 years ago. And he never realized that he could save the seeds, because it's a new crop for so many people. They never had access to actually carrot seeds. They didn't have in their region someone saving carrot seeds. And that's what we do when we have projects. We know that there is a few farmers that have kept carrot seeds in Ecuador in particular. It's a matter of finding them. We can all say, oh no, we can't find anything, there is nothing. Well, that's the job of permaculture people, to actually not reintroduce variety the lazy way, and especially corporate seeds, but to actually dig and put some money aside to actually find out whether there are traditional varieties and not bulldoze them out.
So this is our garden where carrots run riot. They self-seed all over the place. And they're the umbels, of course, of the carrot. All you really need for seed saving is a bit of patience. Well, actually, neglect. I'd actually say it's pretty easy to save seeds, because they just, whoops, they've gone to seed,
Too early sometimes.
The zucchini that gets to 1 metre long.
Well, they're for seeds, eh? And we eat the seeds as well. Do you eat your pumpkin seeds when you got too many? Yeah. Everyone does. Yeah, great.
Okay, cleaning seeds at our place is All right, so in Central Asia, onions also come from there. They're so sweet, some of them you can eat them like an apple. Afghanis. Of course, now this brings us to the topic that you can reproduce some of these plants by vegetative means. Like in Cuba, they were telling us that they reproduce their beetroot and celery by little offshoots. You know, they notice that there's little offshoots, so they just excise those from, say, around the top of the beetroot and take that and put that to the side and grow.
Yeah, everyone loves onion, like in Zimbabwe. I remember on the market, imported onion in Harare, absolutely everywhere. It was the most expensive and the most sought after item that brings some spice to their cooking that could be seen as bland, even by themselves. So there is always a solution. The solution is to find different species of onion that are adapted to the tropics, like in Indonesia. You can find a lot of Allium ascalonicum, which is a relation to the Allium cepa, the onion here. And there is dozens and dozens of cultivated species of oniony type plants that can be used to an advantage. And again, for a permaculture project, that's the job, to actually look for all the different subspecies and species. They all come from the north of Central Asia, broadly speaking.
However, when you're anywhere in the world, you may well be in a secondary centre of diversity, meaning that those species have arrived there quite a long time ago. For example, rock melons and watermelons originate in Africa, but Afghanistan, where we took this shot, is considered a secondary centre of diversity. And with all the travel now, not just this last 10,000 years of agriculture where we've moved with our seeds.
It's the Arabs.
It's the Arabs that took them around a long time ago. And,
millet as well.
And so this is in Herat, but that's a Kandahar variety of cantaloupe. And for example, in Russia, watermelon is taken with tea, but the Arabs brought it there about 1,000 years ago.
Boris Kustodiev. Anyone knows him?
Boris Kustodiev.
It's about, yeah.
Took that shot, or painted that picture.
Painted that picture, yeah.
So is Japan a secondary centre for watermelons, you think?
Well, that's not
Can
so
you
bad.
see? Apparently you just grow it in a box. You grow it in a bamboo box, Toru?
Wooden box.
Or a wooden box, yes. Now just about the economy of seed and the abundance, and I love that expression of, am I standing in the wrong place? Nope. Expression of Albert's the other night. Are you leading a creative, abundant adventure of a life or an unfair struggle? Wasn't that great? There's nothing like seeds for abundance. So, for example, 10 tomato plants will give you 480 seed packets. Chili plants will give you 750 seed packets, and 10 lettuce plants will give you 100 seed packets with large amount of seeds in there. In fact, any one lettuce plant that's really healthy will produce 10,000 seeds. Yeah? So we know about the abundance of seeds.
So what we tend to do is to organize, again, women to produce seeds when there's a financial advantage for them, village women, and when there's a lack of seeds, or where obviously people are buying seed. We can observe it. You can observe where the seed comes from. Ask questions, have a good look. And so that's a very good urban community enterprise. But the question is to give quality seeds for anyone that actually passing a seed to someone else, especially if you ask for money. You've got a duty of care. There's seed-borne diseases that can be taken care of organically, and you don't need capsan, you don't need fungicide to do that. There's water treatment, hot water. Listen, it's all on the net. You can find out. There's no secret about it. So there's no more reason to give seeds that have diseases inside. You know, the disease can be on the surface, and if it's very infected, it gets right deep into the core of the seeds. And you end up having problem of production, of leaf curl, you got all sorts of fungus problem after. Tomato is easy to clean up too, very easy. Fermentation process, but we'll talk about that.
In the fermentation workshop.
In Auckland, we've got a workshop there. Next week.
I'm leaving you to read the first three, but just looking at breeding seeds, storing in very cold seed banks, doesn't seem like a wise idea in light of climate change. We'll look at that. Public taste, reducing and being undermined by these perfect-looking vegetables with little taste. We'll look at that too. And this last point is just a bit of a, I don't know, an observation of ours that if you have to eat more food, as you have to eat more food because it has less nutrition, then you're likely to start getting obese from having to eat more food from the supermarket. Yeah. This is New Guinea, where 3-minute noodles reign, as they do throughout the Pacific and Southeast Asia. And if you look closer in at this picture, that kind of shop on the left has only processed foods. And what do you see in the hands of our wonderful chieftain here? Coca-Cola, yeah.
It's very high status, Coca-Cola really, because of the red color. Look, he's wearing red as well. It's for good reason. The Polynesians also love red feathers, you know, threaded in that. So it's something that I suppose everyone, lipsticks.
Okay, let's just look at some facts about nutrition in modern varieties compared to traditional, because we do need some raw and heavy data and support for what we're saying, yeah, for the message we're putting out. So in 1996, in the New Scientist, there was a wonderful report on brassicas. A woman called Gail Vines wrote this, V-I-N-E-S, Gail, and she found that modern varieties of Brussels sprouts and broccoli are bred for their bland taste, which means there's a loss of glucosinolates. And you know how cabbages are famous for their strong smell, that whole family. They found that these modern varieties were lacking in glucosinolates, which are a sulfur-based compound that has, the whole group of them are quite complex, of course, but in summary, they have cancer-reducing properties, which is why brassicas are noted for that. They also help fight Helicobacter pylori,
when they're fermented,
which is a precursor for stomach ulcers. They help with heart regulation, arteriosclerosis, and so these properties in the smelly cabbage family are missing in your lovely, wonderful, beautiful, cardboard-tasting broccoli in your supermarket. So while your naturopath might tell you to go out and eat broccoli, we better think about whether you're going to go for that one or the very skinny one in your garden.
or like the Portuguese.
Sinegrin is also an insecticide. Unfortunately, cabbage moths have resistance, immunity to Sinegrin, but that's why wild cabbages, precursors to all of our cabbages, Brassica oleracea, which all come from that one ancestor, have a high level of Sinegrin, so they're very strong in taste. But it's also reputed to have wonderful properties that I've mentioned. Glucoraphaene becomes sulforaphane upon chewing and upon cutting, which is why sauerkraut and kimchi and skimono are such good additions to your diet because they're already pre-cut. And sulforaphane is the one that's really helpful. I'm just giving you this quickly and you could look these up.
Everywhere.
While we were in Portugal recently in November for a month on a seed tour, we noticed that everywhere they had these, just absolutely everywhere. There were lines of tronchuda or galega, or so they're couvesh, which means cabbage, and then the varieties are tronchuda, galega, and lisa.
Yeah, but there are thousands of the varieties, and the only way you will keep those varieties going is those land races going, because they all come from the coastal choke of Portugal, and from Portugal, where Galicia, is by having farmers. So what we're losing is not diversity of vegetable. We need to keep the farmers in and especially home gardeners. So if there's less and less farmers, we replace that by permaculturists, by home gardeners. And that's a job that all of us can do, you know, that's my mission speak, missionary, seed missionary, that we can all save a little seed, split a few watermelon, that's seed consciousness. We can all do that. It's a pity to throw some good seeds in a compost when you can actually eat them or reseed them. They're too good to actually throw pumpkin in a compost unless it's a way to self-seed.
This is a bit of a tribute to Michel's uncle, Oncle Dede, and that he never bought any of his broccoli or other seeds. He's the husband of Michel's godmother.
Like this. That's what he's doing.
So let's have a look at the medicinal properties of apples, and I'm really grateful to Mark Christensen. You're over here somewhere. Mark, you can stand up.
So that we can see you.
People can recognise you. You'll know why you're clapping, and although a few of you have already heard this, but in 2002 and 3, Mark instituted a whole study on 59 varieties of apples here in New Zealand with the New Zealand Tree Crop Association, and has more recently started a trust for research. You were prompted to do this research to find out about medicinal properties of apples. How many apples a day does it take to keep the doctor away? And in particular, the fact that apples are known for their cancer-reducing properties. And I'm only summarising an enormously complex study, but in summary, he found that seedling varieties have the highest levels of polyphenolic acids, which are ones that are considered to reduce cancer, and commercial varieties had the least, and traditional varieties had good levels. In particular, they found that one seedling variety that you found on the side of the road and named Monty's Surprise had the highest levels in flesh and skin, but more high in the skin. Yeah? Yeah.
And if anyone wants to talk to Mark, I'm sure that he'll love to talk to you, even in a group. Would that be right, Mark?
At morning tea.
Oh, well, maybe, but you know him now, right?
Living locally near Wanganui. And you're continuing with these studies and have studied 250 varieties of apple in total now.
And tomatoes.
And it's not just it's a really serious study with French, American and local scientists involved in studying these levels comparatively, and with French cider apples as a kind of benchmark. You're also doing tomatoes and beans now. Mm-hmm. This is one of your
Well, we need to know, really. You know, we always have been looking for an answer, and then years ago we heard about Mark and we thought, that's it. And we met him just at a workshop. He was just there, sitting.
Of course, there's a
listening.
correlation between taste and nutrition. Let's look quickly about some implications. And everyone always says to us, oh, the tomatoes don't taste like they used to. Really? Yeah. No, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay.
So it's not just a matter of local food, it's not just a matter of organic food, it's also a matter of what kind of variety you're growing from. Somebody asked us in one of the workshops, well, how much, you know, what percentage depends on the seed, and what percentage depends on the soil, and what percentage depends on the freshness? Well, of course it changes. It's difficult to put your finger on that, and you couldn't. It's always changing. So let's look at locally adapted varieties in comparison to others. They need less inputs, and I'm just going to gloss over this fairly quickly because you all know this. They give more reliable yields. They adapt to climate change. They're out in the open, adapting. They're longer bearing, that is, they don't all bear at once like you have to have for a supermarket. They suit polycultures, now this is really important, so not only should they be local, fresh, organic, but they should also be grown from the right variety and grown in a polyculture. People in the Philippines talk about this. They have a certification for polyculture grown. There's shade-grown coffee. Look that up. Shade-grown coffee. Friends of ours in India do this in the Western Ghats, grown in the rainforest. And they're more tasty and they're more nutritive. And we've covered that one. So have you heard of Z-Sweet? Z-Sweet peaches and nectarines? Available, put your hand up if you know Z-Sweet. You've seen that on the little label on the stone fruit. Okay, so Zyga Genetics are the originators of this brand name, and they're in California. They're the leading breeders of tasteless varieties.
Sweet.
So what they're going for is high sugar and low acid. Now, this Monty Surprise apple has got high acid, and that's what makes it so tasty and possibly so nutritive. But what they're going for is bland tastes. So really do avoid that. That's a good sign. And this is all the kind of guff they give to people who are selling it in the fruit and vegetable shops. All this promotion I got off the net. But where's the tang and the flavour in these high sugar?
We might have to do a pledge, you know.
Okay, let's go to the really bad news. In the 1980s, there was a takeover and marriage of giant seeds, pesticides and biotech companies. And you can see Syngenta, which is the second largest corporation on seeds, is into those three, but it bought up these other ones during the 80s.
And that's why we started Seed Savers, and that's why the American Seed Savers started, and that's where the Indians started. Everyone could see that coming big time.
So this is a very hard to distinguish map of, Syngenta is the third largest. Monsanto has taken over various seed companies. DuPont, and all the blue are seed companies, the red are pharmaceutical and chemical companies, and the yellow are other ones. So just going in closer to that, because it is hard for you to see.
The other one are Volvo, Volkswagen. They all put money into seed in the 80s.
Shell.
Derisol and Shell, of course. That Shell was bought 280 seed company in 3 years. And I met actually one of our friends now, and in some ways supporters, was the guy that bought for Cargill. Cargill is a very big one, grain grower from Canada. And he said that through a journalist that he wanted to meet with us when we come to France. And he said, listen, you know, I've got something on my conscience because I used to restructure Aquai company for Cargill in Europe. And so he was the guy that actually bought the seed company, all of that. He'd seen the light. So now he's completely on the other side. He's created eco-villages in Portugal and France.
So just going in closer to that Monsanto takeover, in 2005 they took over Seminis, which was the largest vegetable seed company in the world at the time, which had already taken over companies like Royal Sluice, which are a Dutch company, very well-known Dutch company. And Dutch people would probably be really shocked to know that Monsanto actually owns their kind of signature company.
From 1800, so they're 120 years old.
Just going back to that slide, do look up Philip Howard, see his name there? Michigan State University, and this is the website, msu.edu, and then the rest of it, Philip Howard. This diagram, he's animated, so he's showing you how they're all getting gobbled up. Just go back.
And he's got one on soft drinks as well. And soft drink is mind-boggling. Like it's just when you see when you see the animation, it looks like an ant's nest where all eating each other and ending up with Coca-Cola controlling and Kraft. It's very much telling, because we know that, but to be able to be shown that in a dynamic way is something that's very impressive. Even that, already when you see the size of Monsanto and the relationships with everyone, like they literally got a finger in every pie. Like, for example, Monsanto were swapping genes, suing each other with just about everyone. So they're very cooperative and also very fighting. Competitive.
Another scary fact is that the three largest companies gained 47% of the worldwide proprietary seed market in 2007. I often wonder about these figures. You know, what about China? Anyway, that's just a nasty figure. By the way, we hope to put this PowerPoint up on our website. We've already put one about schools as a resource that you can download and show others. We did try and break into Monsanto in Bangalore in India, but we were thrown out.
Well, we actually, no. What we actually had an appointment with them, yeah? But they didn't realize who we were. And when they realized who we were, because we were actually introduced by someone that was dealing with business, actually an organic breakfast cereal for children in his compound. So Monsanto crowded this guy in his kind of area with security guard and all of that. And at the end they say, no, you can't get in at all. So, you know, so the manager, the director of breeding came outside and, you know, they were all very polite and all of that, but we felt very unwelcome and we could see their breeding. Maybe, I don't think we got a picture on that here. The glass houses that they had for GMOs to actually breed them. So they breed, we know that. They breed, because we talked to some of the staff, they breed their GMOs right in the city, in glass houses, with huge filters. So they filter the pollen. Yes, they do. But they're not stupid, you know. But, you know, I mean, it goes on people's clothes when you leave. They all get jackets and all of that. But you can't avoid having some pollen in your hair of maize. It lasts for 24 hours in a cool condition. You know, you go to the research station in another one and bang, you already got some pollen into the next generation. No.
This shot we took in Ecuador, and you took it.
I don't see anything.
And it's a kilo of seeds from Monsanto, corn seeds. So they do retail to small farmers as well as
It
really
is
large.
written, the packet is written Monsanto, you can't see it, but it is.
In terms of cooperation between these large giants, they do share information and breeding material and licensing agreements from one to the other. And that's once again Philip Howard. Now let's turn to the Svalbard Global Seed Gene Vault. We don't think this is a good idea. Do you? No. Good. Wouldn't be a good idea to put something in, to put all the seeds of the world for safekeeping into a very cold place and a very long distance away, because, you know, we run out of petrol to get there. And if we are trying to adapt to climate change, then we need to leave things outdoors.
You know what the message is here? Don't worry about your seeds, okay? We are looking after it. It's already looked after. In fact, we have no access to it, and it's only for depositors, by the way. So it creates the same thing with seed savers. We created, that's why we dismantled the centrality of it. After 20 years of functioning, or 18 years, now we're 26th year. Because people would say, oh, don't worry, seed savers got it. Say, no. That's going to be you in your area taking responsibility with the seed that we collected from you for a start. And we redistribute the seed and find some new variety, find all the varieties that are already in your area and all the vegetatively propagated material that we can't see ourselves in Byron Bay or wherever we are. So it's very much a local thing to do.
So look, in any area that you work, I'd suggest you start an organisation, get a name for yourself, and then you get inside the LME territory, like the Ibaraki Seed Bank in Japan, where Michelle had a look.
Yeah, well, that's Japanese, JIAC, Japanese Agriculture, how do you call it?
Doesn't matter.
It's the largest organic agricultural institute in Japan, in Ibaraki, and they have a seed bank with 127,000 samples. That was years ago. And the director that I met, he took me around, and he said, no human hands have touched our seeds, proudly. Well, that's what seeds need. They actually need to be in people's hands. And it was a bit rude. I just say, would you have any samples of soybean for the farmers I was working in Japan, organic farmer, Japanese agriculture. And I was very embarrassed because Japanese don't like to say no, no, it's not a very nice word to say. And they like to oblige, they're very kind people. And he could not do it, and oh my gosh, he went like that. I felt embarrassed to actually have asked. When his right-hand guy was there, and he said, oh, he said, we cannot give them like that, we cannot get them, we need a memorandum of understanding, it may take 2 years to get them out of the seed bank, and oh, gosh, I said, my gosh. It's not all seed bank like that, but that was their rules there. So immediately, the person, the second in charge there, say, listen, I've got wonderful seed that we grow ourselves, I'm going to give you some. But that was a seed bank that is not for people. Japanese farmers have got no access to it, virtually.
So this is a bit of a summary of our take on what these large seed banks are about, that they obtain their seeds from the poor people and the gene flow goes toward the rich people in these ways. In particular, Michelle's covered the red tape, they go to breeders that work for large corporations or universities funded by them, or governments that actually service these large corporations because they're so powerful. And then they privatise and patent the seed. You all know this, don't you? And then they make things like climate-ready crops or organic crops. So Monsanto is very large, big on organic seeds now, with the trend. And with the climate-ready crops, the drought resistance and so on. Now let's turn to GE. We haven't put a lot about GE, because to be truthful, I just find it just too scary, actually. For example, in Australia, we've been growing genetically engineered cotton organically for about 10 or 15 years. And Kerry Packer was one of the major, he's one of our...
Player in organic cotton, in GMO cotton.
He's a media baron.
And of course it ended up in your fish and chip.
And then our local fish and chip shop has a sign that says, we use only cottonseed oil.
But you know, that, you probably know that cottonseed oil have got a high burning level. How do you call that in English?
Boiling point.
Yeah, that's right. And of course it's a favour of fish and chip shops, and unfortunately New Zealand would get that from Australia at a guess.
Also, cottonseed is used in cattle feed and other feed. And the website that I got some of this information from is cottonaustralia.com.au, you know, the cotton industry. They're proudly telling you that nothing turns up in the residue, no residues of GE in the oil and so forth. So be very wary about organic cotton and fish and chips.
Oh, Jude, well, that we said that.
Now, you might think that cotton growers of GE cotton are very large-scale growers like in Australia, laser-levelled fields and so forth, but no, in India we found this man and several others who had tiny cotton fields, the size of your lounge room, and he was sort of a sadhu, but he said his children were growing BT cotton, and it's a Bacillus thuringiensis variety where they brought the gene of soil fungus, soil bacterium into cotton, because it's an organic insecticide. And but he lamented that his children were growing BT cotton, and he said, "What can you do about the kids today?" You know, but he would prefer to be growing traditional varieties. But you know,
he's in our film. Actually, he make a few statements in our film, but. Actually, this guy is retired, yeah? And he's going for a walk, for retirement, like
sadhu.
Yeah, instead of going to a retirement village or going for a holiday surfing on the coast or having a camper van, this guy goes walking. Really, bravo. Footprint, very nice. He's barefoot.
So let's turn to hybrids. We noticed these varieties of corn, being advertised in North Vietnam in the Green Hmong area, out in the northwest of Vietnam.
That means? I've translated what it means. It means
Oh, the writing.
is currently the highest yield, because that's what they go for, high yield. Yeah? So that's what the signs say down the bottom. Well, often people don't have the choice because they don't even have the traditional varieties, and that's a real problem.
So this was the area outside that village where they're growing corn. So they've completely taken down the forest and they grow corn in all that bare area there. Why do they grow corn when they used to grow a huge variety of crops and they used to have a lot of wild foods? Because they need a motorbike or a mobile phone and so on. And you see that in the villages there's rubbish everywhere from the processed food that they buy.
The price of oil, no, it's because of, when biofuel came in, the price of cereal jacked up. And everyone ride on it. So from there, from that little village, there's a network of trucks that actually deliver to the big supplies, and it's shipped outside. It's shipped over to other countries as well in Vietnam, because they eat more and more chicken now. And because when the price of petrol went up, they start making ethanol, yes? And it pushed up the price of maize. And even though this maize there is going to be given to chicken or sold locally and internationally, most of it would go for chicken feed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah? And that's why those people actually have been cleaning their deforesting, because there were a very high price on it. So some of the consequences.
We also noticed in India that there's a lot of hybrid seeds right out in the back blocks. We went into this tribal area near Mysore, and when we saw this advert on a wall, and the pioneers there also. And then we found that people who were growing it, and these people had camped overnight because there were elephants coming through their field, wild elephants, and so they had to light fires around the outside and let off little crackers in order to scare away the elephants. This is them in the morning. And they're the kind of people that grow these hybrid corns.
She's wearing a bag of corn written maize 488 something. Did you see that?
Also, we were in Zimbabwe 10 years or more ago and noticed that because, you know, maize is a staple there, that hybrids were absolutely everywhere. And very few people were growing traditional varieties.
And if you think that only in terms of multinational, Cargill is a family-owned, family of Christian, very decent people to work with. I've heard from several people working for them, but never mind. They still took over the salt of the world. They took over the orange juice transport and production in South America for breakfast. They took over the transport of it.
Of grains.
Of grains, yeah. So they are, you know.
They're Canadian.
And I'm sure you could body work them if you know the family, you know, to actually talk to them, and that is possible to do that.
To do what, sir?
Yeah, they change their investment, and
He has no fear.
we have done that.
So also we've noticed in Malaysia, all we can do is report what we've seen.
The strawberries.
Strawberries, yes, in Cameron Highlands, and many other vegetables grown in the highland areas of Malaysia and of Peninsular Malaysia and of Sabah in Borneo, and they're grown for export to large cities.
Tokyo.
And Kuala Lumpur, of course.
Osaka.
Now these small growers often have these kind of shops like this one in India where both seeds and pesticides are sold. That kind of shop.
So
Go back.
the whole back here, that's a pesticide. It was
Laser pesticide.
Anyone know laser? It's a herbicide.
No, you don't know pesticides.
And you've got Rogor here.
So this is what we do. We hang out in these shops and take photos and interview these people and
Japanese seeds.
interview the farmers that are coming in. So there's one of the nicest shops in Mashhad, in Iran, with these pesticide and seed shops. During our filming, early one morning in Taiwan, I noticed down the road this mist sort of blowing about the place. So we drove down there, and this is sort of 5:30 in the morning, and filmed this guy spraying his tea plantation. You know, oolong tea, green tea from Taiwan, very high price, very healthy to drink. This guy was spraying them, and it's one of the most amazing pieces of film that we've ever taken.
We drink a lot of oolong tea every day.
We have Taiwanese son-in-law, so yeah. In Malaysia, this is an immigrant worker, and there's lots of immigrants all over the world.
His name was Paulus.
Paulus from Flores Island, and there's lots of Burmese, Bangladeshis, and Indonesians working in Malaysia in these crops.
I've put a number of clips on that in different playlists on pesticides, for example, and I interview those guys, them about their life and what they do. So we've got altogether 650 clips that we made. Some of them are pretty quick and ready, you know, because you can't just get microphone out, all of that. You've got to do it on the spot with a little iPhone, with the iPhone 4. Yeah, I've got my kid, I can show you.
Go on.
It's all right, no, that's all right.
In Sabah, this is the weekly delivery of NPK for all these vegetable growing areas.
We actually stay in a hotel room right on top of it, so we were facing Mount Kinabalu, 4,000 meters, the mountain, magnificent with mist, like New Zealand, mist passing, and then this truck arrived right under us, and we watched it getting unloaded for all the little farmers. So those little amount of NPK, etc., end up behind bicycle, motorbikes, little trucks, little buses, right up to the mountain, up to 3,000 meters. So the chemical find their way to middle of the forest, virtually.
And here's Cylon 840 herbicide again.
That's in New Zealand,
Michelle talked about this topic before, so we'll just go quickly over it. But NGOs are often, like aid agencies, are often distributors of commercial seeds after disasters. They'll come in with these things which are very dangerous because it displaces local varieties and can contaminate them if they're cross-pollinating species. So this is the community health group in Tari in the Southern Highlands, and they've got several types of commercial seeds that they distribute out to small farmers for relief. In East Timor, when we were there 10 years ago, this is what Caritas were doing with Yates seed. We were there to encourage them to go locally, you know, spend some money, just pay locals to go out collecting. So if you're a permaculture aid worker, what you might like to do is to go out onto markets and find out what varieties are around and have a really close look at the types there. So looking at this picture, you can't find much. In fact, I'm sorry you can't see it terribly clearly, but down the bottom left, there's sweet potatoes that seem to me about the only thing that's not right. And potatoes in the middle. This is in Ecuador, by the way.
They're all imported seeds, they're all corporate seeds.
Cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli.
Broccoli, huge broccoli, they've got an amazing deep soil.
Radish, turnip and carrots. Now they're all way too uniform. This is the big clue, yeah? So what are the solutions to all these terrible problems we've just enumerated? And we are going over time, so we do have permission.
Only 2 more minutes.
Only 2 more minutes, right. You collect local varieties, you save your seeds, you create habitat for perennials and self-seeders, and you treat the soil as your seed bank. This we've come to over the years, that we don't necessarily have to collect seed and put it away, except for the large ones like pumpkins and corn and bean. You start a local seed network. Okay, that's signage in the garden. Collecting from long yellow eggplant in East Timor. Local seed savers here in Auckland, Katrina Muller. In Afghanistan, they have started 10 years ago a seed network through the Faculty of Agriculture in the university. We did an exercise on the origins of plants with them. They drew these pictures. In the Solomons, Planting Material Network works with people like this that store their corn to the top and above the fibre to the side.
We worked there for 15 years already.
They also have this hibiscus spinach, which is edible spinach, reproduced by cuttings. They did this Taro Fair. We mentioned this before, so we'll just go quickly. We've mentioned before too, the Green Foundation and their community seed banks, swapping seeds, seed mandala at the time of harvest in Tamil Nadu, and seed exchange and fairs, and they call them the seed mothers. This is some people, friends of Kamadoa, whom we saw earlier.
In Japan, they call them seed grandmothers. Mariko does that, eh?
We helped to start this Red de Semillas in Ecuador in 2003, and they're still going really strong, so you might like to look them up on the internet. Recently we were in Portugal on the Sementes Livres tour.
Translation of a film in Portuguese, so that means that we'll be going to Brazil next year. Why not? Got time?
and legs. And
Still.
so in Portugal there's Tamera Eco Village, which has an amazing permaculture design on it, of dams, and they've got their seed bank and storage. Italians have translated our book. And we worked in Havana with the, you've heard a lot about the organoponicos and so forth there. Did a lot of training of agricultural workers. We worked in Tonga in '96 with the Women's Health Group. And now these are some Australians, so this is some of our local seed networks, and do workshops, and they do workshops.
We've got 100 of them in Australia, but they're fluctuating. Autonomous, they are.
This is our little pet topic, food from the wild. So this is Tutai. She's collected bamboo shoots, wild men. And this is our Pandanus victoria that she planted. It's a wild plant, but she's put it into the edge of her garden. It's a greasy Pandanus fruit. Tree leaves that are edible, wild ferns that are edible, sea vegetables. We eat 6 species in our local area, and collect kelp with Bill. And wild food and cultivated food in India. Indians are very big on their wild medicines. And this is the film you'll see tomorrow. I just wanted to end with that one so that that's up while you're talking. Thank you very much.